This is an executive summary of the report, A Generation Apart, Were Young People Left Behind by the EU Referendum? To download the report in full, please go to covey.org.uk. The generational divide in attitudes towards the EU, as brought into focus by the referendum, was by no means a new phenomenon. Almost every single study published about the referendum in the months leading up to it demonstrated strong generational differences in views on whether the UK should leave or remain in the EU. Polls published beforehand consistently indicated that around 2/3 of those under 35 would opt to remain, whilst with over 55s the picture was almost the reverse. However, it was a referendum result for Brexit that heightened the significance of these divides, an outcome which the majority of younger voters had not chosen. We conducted a research and analysis exercise to explore why such a difference by age was observed. This included an overview of existing attitudinal studies, exclusive new polling with opinion research, sentiment and keyword analysis of 4,399 media headlines, and an online poll of 1,028 Facebook users. Younger people's feelings towards and their perceptions of the European Union are rooted in much broader social attitudes, identities and preferences relating to perceptions of globalisation, international cooperation and nationhood. We begin by exploring the drivers behind the attitudes of the millennials or Gen Y, that's younger people between the ages of 18 and 35, and how their social attitudes, identities and political behaviours affect their outlook towards the EU. Younger people care more about global issues such as environmentalism, human rights and humanitarian aid. They're less aligned with traditional notions of sovereignty and more comfortable with migration. This is in direct contrast with older voters on the two key issues that drove the vote to leave the EU. They're also more risk-averse than previous generations, possibly contributing to concerns that Britain would be less influential in the world outside the EU. Younger people also do politics differently. They're less likely to vote in elections or join a political party, but are more likely to sign a petition, attend a protest and join a campaign on a singular issue. Therefore, the referendum should have been the perfect opportunity for younger people to engage more than in a general election, because it should have been more directly about issues compared to the usual party politics. So to what extent did the campaigns, both to remain and to leave, successfully engage young people? As the referendum campaigns kicked off, younger people were targeted by politicians and campaign groups in an effort to bolster registration. This registration drive was deemed highly successful when the voter registration site crashed on the deadline day, leading to an emergency measure to extend the deadline. We estimate that turnout among under 35s in the referendum was almost certainly higher than in any recent general election, but that there was also a significant gap in turnout by age. We looked at reasons why people of all ages did or didn't vote and find that older people are more likely to see the intrinsic value of voting, that it is a good in itself. They see it as a duty of all citizens. Whereas younger people, by contrast, are more likely to vote in order to have their opinion heard or because they feel strongly about a certain issue. In other words, the extrinsic value. This suggests that younger people are more easily deterred from voting, especially if they don't think their vote will achieve something. The enfranchisement of 16 and 17-year-olds in this referendum would have been a good way to improve overall youth turnout, as was seen in the 2014 Scottish independence referendum. It would not have changed the overall result of the EU referendum, however. We looked at the issues covered by the media and found evidence of a narrow and negative debate. The official messages from the Remain campaign, whilst potentially appealing to younger people's perceptions of risk and uncertainty, did not appeal to their optimistic view of the EU or their internationalist identities. Considering that many millennials do not feel informed enough to vote, the conflicting messages between the campaigns did not help inspire confidence. The tone of the debate felt pessimistic to a majority of people we polled. Also, over half of online headlines about the referendum contained at least one negative word, but only a quarter contained at least one positive one. We compared the issues that mattered to people to what was covered in the headlines. Immigration was covered significantly more than any other issue, especially in the last month before the referendum, when almost 10% of headlines referred to immigration. We also find that the messengers became the message in this campaign. David Cameron's name was mentioned in headlines more frequently than the issues of jobs, healthcare, housing, pay and human rights combined. Of over 300 people who were mentioned in the online news headlines, the average age was 58, 79% of them were men and 93% of them were white. This dangerously risks reinforcing the idea that younger people, ethnic minorities and women do not know enough to have an opinion about politics. The growing crisis that is low voter turnout among Generation Y in general elections requires innovative solutions. However, low voter turnout is a symptom, not a cause of a malfunctioning democracy. We must therefore also look at ways to address the broader social and political environment. There is a real danger that the result of the referendum will have a strong impact on the optimism of millennials. Yet the uncertainty around the Brexit process is coupled with an opportunity to reinvigorate politics. We set out some of the ways in which government, parliament and younger people themselves could harness this opportunity and shape the new political settlement. Our recommendations to government include a series of measures to fix the mechanics of voting, including extending the franchise to 16 and 17-year-olds, considering ways to introduce online voting, holding elections over more than one day, and undertaking a root and branch review of the rules on referenda. We also argue that the new Brexit unit should undertake a public consultation and ensure that negotiations with the EU take account of the priorities of younger people. Finally, we make the case for what millennials as a whole can do to play a larger role in our politics, including talking to our elected representatives, joining a voluntary group, campaign or political party, doing more traditional politics, and continuing the conversation with each other, with older people and with people who disagree. To download the report in full, please go to covey.org.uk.